Is this thing on? Welcome back to Big Mouth and fancy seeing you here, and you are very welcome, my friends, and especially my enemies. Come in, sit down. Shazam has 97% on Rotten Tomatoes. The reviews are in, and 97% of critics love Shazam. And so they should, because it's an awesome movie. And I've spoken about it so much, but let me just read through, not all the reviews, but what they're saying around about. So let's have a look. I like this. Holy superhero fatigue, Batman. Shazam is actually good. Why couldn't that movie have been more fun? You might have said that about some past superhero movies that have hit theatres, but you won't be saying it about Shazam. Warm, witty, and bursting at the seams with great characters, Shazam is easily one of the most fun superhero movies ever made. Even after the euphoric Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, that's still a low bar to clear, but it's worth celebrating all the same. I don't know if that person liked the film or not, but what about this? Written by Henry Gayden and directed by Annabelle Creations director David F. Sandberg, Shazam is a lot jokier and zippier than the spandex tempos we've come to expect from DC's often lugubrious stable of cinematic superheroes. I wish critics wouldn't use long words. I really can't read long words yet. I admit it. Is this another one? Shazam is a welcome antidote to the usual brooding DC fare, an upbeat superhero movie that feels young at heart. If Wonder Woman and Aquaman movies represented DC Comics' first big screen steps away from the austere colour palette of the Zack Snyder movies, Shazam takes us deeply into primary colours in a single bound. Shazam has less in common with the grim grisly world of Batman v Superman and the indulgent marine opera Aquaman, sharing more with the likes of Harry Potter and a certain teenage superhero from a rival comic book company. Spider-Man? Really? Interesting. Shazam doesn't waste a second letting you know this story takes place in the same world where Zod once brought a war to Metropolis, Batman protects the Knights of Gotham, or even Aquaman rules the seas. Superman is chief among them, with name drops practically every few minutes. Yeah, absolutely. And as you know, I love Superman, so that's awesome. There's a great grinning tradition of demigod in spandex movies that don't take themselves seriously, but maybe the reason Shazam, in its fluffy, tasty origin story way, feels like a perfectly timed tonic is that the universe of comic book movies, not just the Marvel Cinematic Universe or the DC Extended Universe, of which this is technically a part, but the whole omniverse universe of big budget comic book films that is now threatening to eat cinema, if not our souls, has grown to top heavy with its own fateful importance. Interesting. For the large parts of the movie, Shazam unfurls like a holiday movie spin on the genre, and embracing earnest glee and a heartfelt tenderness, Shazam allows us to fully appreciate the magic, excitement and wonder that superheroes can supply. Director David F. Sandberg has compared the movie to the teen-friendly, ambling entertainment movies of the 80s. E.T. the Extraterrestrial, The Goonies, Back to the Future, the production company created by Steven Spielberg, Kathleen Kennedy and Frank Marshall, and there's a lot of truth to that. Okay, so it's basically big with superheroes and villains instead of business people and girlfriends, but director David F. Sandberg has infused his film with so much heart and charm that it hardly matters. Levi plays the title character with an infectiously naive gee-whiz charisma that calls to mind Tom Hanks in Big more than anything. Whenever Levi is on screen, wowed by his new grown-up physique, his muscles seem to have muscles, and shocked by his newly discovered powers, living lightning zaps from his fingertips, the movie soars. Levi's body language is constantly inventive as he plays a tween who still isn't used to a grown man's body, let alone a superhero's. But the cheeky balsa wood trick of Levi's performance is that he's not making fun. He's totally sincere. It's just that he's playing a superhero with a magic case of imposter syndrome. For a guy not named Chris, he makes a pitch-perfect do-gooder. There's a youthful wonder and innocence he captures as the Frito-chomping man-child hero, and he has all of the facial expressions and flossing skills, dancing kind rather than the dental, to convey the pure excitement of a boy learning he can pretty much do anything. It's unfortunate that Levi plays Shazam even younger than Angel plays Billy, and without even a sniff of empty stoicism. It often feels like Levi isn't possessed by a teenager so much as he's performing at a child's birthday party, but over-emphasizing the concept of their shared character has its perks. Well, there's always going to be a few naysayers, isn't there? But it's Freddie Freeman, its star Jack Dylan Grazer, giving off major Fred Savage vibes, while compensating for Asher Angel's comparably flat performance. Oh my God, piss off! Who really connects Billy to this mortal crew of lost children, a sarcastic, disabled superhero fanatic who's sadly in touch with his place in the world. Freddie would give anything to be Shazam, and Freeman marvellously conveys the bittersweet pleasures of the second-hand excitement. This is the part of this film that really gets to me. This young boy who's disabled, who just loves these superheroes. That's me, that's you. It's beautiful, and that's why I love it, and I'm crying. Billy's foster brother and resident superhero expert Freddie, Jack Dylan Grazer, the clear standout of the young cast. One of Shazam's most delightful surprises is its young cast, who play their characters not as prestigious movie brats, but as the real three-dimensional individuals with their own idiosyncrasies. I actually read that word, wow. The young actors assembled here are astounding and immediately captivating, especially Grazer as Freddie, and Faith Herman as Darla. Yeah, she's wonderful, who nearly steal the show. It's why when the film asks you to believe that it's really about family and not merchandising, you're on board. From the moment Billy walks in the door of Victor and Rosa Vasquez, Cooper Andrews and Marta Millan's crowded foster house, you hope that it will become his forever home. There's a palpable Hollywood collaborate warmth to that place, and everyone under its multicultural roof is essential to the mix. Yeah, it's beautiful. It is beautiful. I'm very emotional now. Excuse me. This is just, I love DC. I love DC. As simple as these people saying these beautiful things fills my heart with joy. The film takes seriously the challenges of childhood and adolescence and the long-ranging effects of early traumas. Billy's messy feelings about finding a new family after losing his mother years ago are given every bit as much weight as his journey towards becoming a true hero. It's beautiful. Shazam works because of its emphasis of friendship and family. Mrs. Vasquez has a bumper sticker that reads, "I'm a foster mom. What's your superpower?" Bloody hell. Yeah, these are just things that are just beautiful, aren't they? That sums up the film's overall hug vibe. Shazam might be the most heart-warming superhero film since Sam Raimi's Spider-Man films. It's true. Sandberg has a great visual eye, and it really shows with his horror background. He is able to incorporate tension when needed and work in a couple of jump scares. Sandberg's coherent tactical direction also harkens back to the time before every fantasy movie was pre-vis with an inch of its life. Sure, there's plenty of digital effects work, and much of it shows the strain of the movie's relatively meagre 90 million budget. Oh, piss off! But even the biggest set pieces are layered in character-driven and littered with solid grace notes, which all films should. All TV shows and dramas and films should be character-driven, or it doesn't work. And that's how Captain Marvel suffered, if you ask me, which you're not. David F. Sandberg made his name in horror, lights out Annabelle creation, before helming Shazam, and it shows in that he's perhaps too effective at making the monster scary. Oh, piss off! Those watching with younger, more sensitive children will want to exercise caution. Oh, yeah, let's protect our children for everything. Let's make everything bright and lovey-dovey and never show them the other part of the world. Stop it. Listen to this crap, right? At times, particularly in the third act, the visual effects are not as polished as prior DCEU films, easily attributed to the smallest budget the franchise has seen thus far. Probably the same type of person that says, it could be, well, before, right, they were talking about Doomsday not having good CGI. So, although I think Shiraz Faraki comic book debate might be a die-hard Snyder fan. So there's a bit of an agenda there. I think we're getting... What is the thing, these current DC movies, movie like Justice League, which has all the big name characters, is atrocious yet. Movies like Aquaman and Shazam are lower grade characters but have some personality to them and are enjoyable. And now Shazam, of all things, a 1940s Superman clone that now can't even use his own name, sits atop the recent DC movie heap alongside Wonder Woman. Wow. That's awesome, isn't it? That's awesome. It's well in the 90s. It was 97. I don't know if it's 93 now. But basically, Shazam has had great reviews. I did kind of scroll down to the... because they try and balance it out with the negative stuff. But basically, it's absolutely fantastic. The film is a valentine for superheroes. But as I've said before, the mixture of the tones seamlessly is beautiful. And if you haven't seen the movie, ignore this crap about the CGI. As soon as they heard, right, that the budget was 90 million, and they had it in their minds. They had to say something, didn't they? They had to find some negativity. But listen, mainly the reviews are very, very positive. I'm happy about that. But just remember, critics are just displaying their own views. It's up to you to make your own mind up. Shazam is this mentality of New Line Cinema, of this brilliant team of Walter Hamada and Peter Safran. This is working really well because basically you've got Peter who's coming out being vocal and explaining to us about what's going on within this universe, and then you've got Walter Hamada, which is the brains of the outfit. And he's the one who's constructing all of this, and the DC Black Label as well, which is a genius move. I am very, very excited for the future of DCEU movies, because if this is something to go by, you should be excited. But do not think that every one of these films is going to be a light-hearted film. The great thing about this film, it's a mixture of everything. It's not just light. You've heard me read out those reviews, basically. The film is balanced with everything you need from a superhero movie. So let's move on to Wonder Woman 1984, which interestingly is produced by Charles Roven, which is the kind of older production team of the DCEU. The Zack Snyderverse, because Zack and Debbie are actually producers on here as well. So he's given an explanation why Wonder Woman 1984 was actually pushed back to next year. Now, June 2020 was its original date, but he explains that Warner Brothers were desperate to have another DCEU movie because the Joker movie isn't DCEU this year. Now, Patty Jenkins kind of went to Warner Brothers and said, listen, we need more time to make this the best movie. So in the end, Warner Brothers came back and said, listen, you're right. We're going to give you the time you need for this film. So that's the reasoning. Is it true? Is that the reasoning? Or did they go back and change some things? Well, I think it's good the release date was put back. We've got 2 female-led movies next year. Wonder Woman 1984, Birds of Prey. That's great for the franchise to push that mantle out as well. So I think it's the right decision. And obviously, they've had some time for some changes, and I'm very excited for the movie. And I can't wait to San Diego Comic-Con, to finally see this trailer. So Zack Snyder has been talking at his Watchmen Director's Cut convention, because he's doing these Director's Cuts conventions, isn't he? And answering fan questions. So he was talking, and I must admit, I saw this video and he was swearing a lot. And first I want to read you a quote from what Zack said. My heroes would never do that. Stop living in your fucking dream world. Right, that's what Zack Snyder said. So I want to... Look, that's going to go down like a lead balloon. But let me tell you my take. First of all, as I always have to do, I love Zack Snyder. I love BVS. I love a Man of Steel, and I want to see the Snyder Cut. But let me tell you why I disagree with that comment. Now, I would love if Zack Snyder created his own superheroes and put them in the real world. I would watch the hell out of it and enjoy it. And if that's what he wants to do, that's great. But if we're talking about Superman, and I don't know if he is, but if he was literally talking about Watchmen and what the creator did with them, because they're very kind of real world superheroes, and they're not the fantasy based superheroes we're used to. But let me speak about Superman. And let's talk about, for example, Superman breaking Zod's neck. And people saying, Superman wouldn't have done that. Right. Superman is wish fulfillment. He is. He's a hero we all look up to. And there's certain things that the diehard fans don't want to see him doing. They don't want to see Superman killing. They don't want Superman being glum. They want Superman being optimistic. Now, I love Man of Steel. I love it. And I'm glad it was made. And I'm glad Batman v Superman were made. But when you're talking about Superman and Batman, they're escapism. The mass audiences, and I'm talking about mainstream, do not want to see these characters, in the relative world, in the real world. So when people say my hero wouldn't do that, it's because they don't want them in the real world. But Zack and David S. Goyer and Christopher Nolan, for example, with Man of Steel, put them in a real world scenario. Now, I love those films, but I don't think those films should ever be the norm. We should value those films. We should be glad they were being made. But to say to millions of people around the world, fucking live in the real world, I don't agree with that. And I'm going to lose subscribers for this because I absolutely love the shit out of Zack. And it's clear he's very angry. He stayed quiet for a very, very long time. Fans have abused him. They said a lot of things about him because they feel he's kind of wrecked their heroes. I don't feel that way. And I love Superman. He is my superhero. And I love Man of Steel. And I think, Zack Snyder has every right. If he's given the responsibility to make a film like Man of Steel, just ignore that. As usual, I really shouldn't have this bloody phone in my room. Anyway, right, he was given the responsibility of doing it. That's the take that him, David and Chris wanted to do. That's fine. But when you come out publicly and say that, because he's already he's disliked by a lot of the movie-going audience, and when you say that, I think, obviously he doesn't care because he's got his followers, he's got his fandom, and I understand. But at the end of the day, fucking live in the real world. Well, no. Honestly, as much as I love those films, I don't want Superman living in the real world. He's my escape. Smallville was my crutch for years because my life was shit. So this is why characters like Superman and Batman and all the DC characters should be left in the fantasy world and not brought in the real world. Am I happy with what they did with Man of Steel? Yes. I wasn't that triggered by Zod dying and what happened with Superman in BVS. I loved it. I absolutely loved it, and I would have loved it. But you can't tell millions of people around the world to fucking live in the real world. And that, my friends, is my take on it. And I'm sorry if that offends anyone. As you know, I'm a big Snyder fan. Big Snyder fan. But I believe these characters are escapism, and they should remain so. So if you haven't been triggered with what I've had to say, please like, share and subscribe. Please comment down below and let me know what you think. And also, don't forget, he hasn't done his BVS director's cut yet, the Batman v Superman director's cut. Now that, my friends, is going to be even more controversial and interesting than the one he's just done.